You're a high school graduate working as a janitor. H. Suits you well. Loser back in middle school. There was this classmate who seemed to have it out for me, no matter what. She was a smart girl who even served as a class representative, but she always kept to herself. This girl really disliked me and would pick on me at every opportunity. I had no idea why, but after I pointed something out to her, she completely turned against me. We went our separate ways after high school and lost touch, but I never imagined we'd run into each other at company. Her attitude towards me hadn't changed a bit since middle school. She still looked down on me. "Crawling on the floor and cleaning is just right for you," she said with a mocking laugh in response. My secretary tore up her resume right in front of her. "Leave right now. Did you come to the interview here without knowing anything? My name is Alexander." Pretty cool and old-fashioned, right? Even so, maybe it was hard for kids to call me that, so in kindergarten, everyone called me Alex. Now I'm happily married to a woman I met during high school. We support each other and work together every day. It's busy and tough, but we're living fulfilling days. I wouldn't say I have a cleaning obsession, but I really like to clean. I need to keep not only myself, but also my surroundings clean to be satisfied. Each room has a lint roller ready, and there are 2 trash cans in each room. I can't stand things being left out, and I get restless if things aren't in their proper place. The same goes for my appearance. I hate it if my clothes aren't washed and ironed. Even if a bit of wrinkle is considered stylish for some clothes, I'd iron them. That's why I couldn't accept jeans with intentional damage that were popular for a while. But, of course, coming home tired from work, it's better to be welcomed by a clean room than a dirty one. It's like a trade I was born with, so no matter how tired I am, I never skip cleaning. Cleaning also helps me relieve stress, so it's ultimately for my own good. People who don't know me well often think I have a cleaning obsession, and I not only like cleaning my room myself, but also enjoy watching others clean. Watching everyone cooperate in cleaning from a step back is something I like to observe. Many people struggle with cleaning and tidying up. That's why observing someone who can move efficiently feels like I can learn about their strengths in areas I wouldn't know from their regular work. I like discovering these unseen aspects through cleaning. My wife Charlotte has a strict personality when it comes to manners and etiquette. As a matter of course, I've always said I'm off and I'm home even when I was living alone. But the most stringent aspect was the attitude towards others. No matter the circumstances, I would never forgive someone who belittles others or hurled insults in front of a third party. If someone dared to do such a thing in front of Charlotte, they'd get a lecture. I've been in such situations a few times, but it was in those moments that I found Charlotte quite intimidating and firmly told myself I must watch my behavior and choice of words around Charlotte. Speaking of grooming, it brings back a memory. This was back when I was in middle school. I believe everyone has their own values, but there was one classmate who was awkwardly trying to connect with me. This classmate was a girl named Sophia, who served as the class representative at the time. Sophia was one of the top students in our class. Apparently, both of her parents had attended and graduated from top universities, and it seemed like academic excellence ran in her family. Maybe that's why she was raised with the mindset that being the best was the norm. She always kept people at a distance, winning was expected, and she believed she always had to be on top, leading and giving orders. This belief was as natural to her as breathing. Even though I thought it was a twisted view, I didn't say anything since she seemed okay with it, especially since Sophia was solely focused on her studies, and I was the one who always competed with her for the top spot in our grade. Perhaps because my parents were also academically inclined, I had always had a good memory since I was young. I studied for tests, but if I paid attention during regular classes, I didn't need to cram to score well. I wouldn't say this out loud, though, to avoid sounding boastful. But for me, preparing for tests was just a review. For Sophia, it must have been frustrating not to be the clear number one in her eyes. I was nothing but an obstacle. I had no intention of competing with Sophia, but by our third year in middle school, she started to make snarky remarks every time she outperformed me. "Oh, Alexander, did you have an off day this time?" I was feeling a bit under the weather on the test day and thought I wouldn't make it to the top. "Was it difficult for you?" She implied that she was clearly at the top of the class and laughed, saying, "Oh, you didn't understand such an easy question. Are you sure you're reviewing properly, Alexander?" While Sophia's grades were indeed excellent, her social skills and grooming left much to be desired. The girls around us were starting to take an interest in fashion and made efforts to look cute within the school rules, but Sophia's interests were solely academic with no concern for fashion. She had the classic nerdy look with braided pigtails and thick glasses, but nobody dared to point this out to her. Although Sophia was a top student, her condescending attitude meant she had no friends. She didn't seem to care, though, and spent her breaks reading alone at her desk. Among the girls starting to embrace fashion, she stood out for not fitting in. Among the boys, she was referred to behind her back as a nerdy girl. One day, thinking I was doing her a favor, I decided to give her some advice. "Sophia, aren't you interested in fashion, You know, like trying contacts or changing your hairstyle." Just removing her glasses could change her impression, and if contacts were too scary, switching to more fashionable glasses could still transform her look. And her hairstyle could use a change too. Letting down her braids for a ponytail or even cutting it to a bob could make a big difference. I thought even trimming her bangs could make her face appear brighter. "Maybe you make some friends then." "Shut up." Sophia suddenly became furious at my suggestion. She stood up abruptly, throwing a book at me. "I don't need to hear that from you. I was just trying to help. That's called meddling." "None of your business. What's it to you anyway? Looks are subjective. I like my glasses and hairstyle as they are. Just leave me alone." Sophia's loud retort drew the attention of the entire class, and from that point on, she looked at me even more critically than before. Even though Sophia glared at me until graduation, I endured it, thinking that our association would end with middle school. Anyway, naturally, Sophia's path was to attend a prestigious school. She might have been influenced by the expectations of those around her and her parents. On the other hand, I chose a regular public high school. When Sophia found out, she came up to my desk, puffing her chest out in triumph. "Alexander, I hear you're going to a public high school." "Yeah, so what?" "It's a shame. I thought I could compete with you here as well. I'm going to the top school in the county, so we might not see each other again." I truly hope so, from the bottom of my heart. Continuing to face such an attitude in high school would probably drive me to the brink of stress. I've always been someone with little desire for competition. I don't cling to material things, and I can easily give up something if it means competing with someone else for it. Besides, attending a prestigious school would likely require a lot of money. My family is just an average middle-class household. Both my parents are intelligent, but they've never been interested in climbing the corporate ladder, believing that a balanced life without excess is best. So we've always lived modestly. That's why I chose a school that was convenient and affordable. There's no shame in it. Since the school's academic level was average, it was also at this high school that I met Charlotte, who would become my wife. Therefore, I can confidently say that my choice was the right one. My meeting with Charlotte started with me falling for her at first sight. She was straightforward, disliking dishonesty, and had a no-nonsense personality which seemed to put off some students. But more than that, she was surrounded by many female friends. Charlotte was serious, but also knew how to blend in with those around her like a typical high school girl. She wore makeup within the school rules and matched accessories with her friends. I secretly admired Charlotte from afar. We were in different classes, our electives and committees were also different, so I wanted to find a way to connect. But there were no opportunities for interaction. I was almost ready to give up, but it seems that fate was on my side. By chance, I ended up working at the same part-time job as Charlotte, which was introduced to me by a senior. The job was at a small bookstore. Charlotte worked the counter while I handled stocking new books, weekly magazines, and journals. The weight of the magazines could be quite heavy in large numbers. I was prepared for the physical demand, but by the time I finished, my back and arms ached terribly. During a break, I found myself massaging my back in the storeroom. Embarrassingly, this turned out to be the first chance for Charlotte and me to converse. "Huh, you look beat. Good job, Alexander." "Thanks. We're from the same high school, right?" You know about me." I was thrilled, and my heart raced at the thought that she knew me. I wasn't a standout like Charlotte, so I assumed I was unnoticed. I was even prepared to graduate without ever being recognized by her. Because it's a cool name. Alexander has an old-fashioned ring to it. Yeah, I like it too. Charlotte started to close the distance between us, and I was secretly celebrating inside. After that, we began talking about high school at our part-time job, and even started chatting at school. We would greet each other in the hallways and even started lending and borrowing textbooks when we ended up in the same class. As we moved up the grades, we would often engage in lively conversations in the classroom. Charlotte was always popular, and she was constantly surrounded by people. Feeling anxious about this situation, I decided to confess my feelings to her on the way home from our part-time job. "I like you. Will you go out with me?" It wasn't a cool way to confess, but I just expressed my feelings directly in a straightforward manner. That was all I, a clumsy person, could do in the dimly lit street after our part-time job without any romantic atmosphere or mood. Charlotte accepted me. We smoothly started dating from there and graduated from high school. We didn't go on to university together, but instead decided to work at the headquarters introduced by our part-time job manager. Furthermore, the manager acted as a matchmaker, and they were able to get married. Everything seemed to fall into place smoothly since meeting Charlotte, and I cherished my happiness. One day, as I was diligently cleaning at the company as usual, a shadow fell in front of me. Because I was mopping the floor, I could tell from the feet that the shadow belonged to a woman wearing a recruit suit and high heels. And when I looked up to see the face, I was startled. Sophia. It was Sophia, my classmate from middle school, with whom I had lost touch since graduation. It seemed Sophia had started to care a bit more about her appearance compared to back then. Her glasses were now half-rimmed, and she had a fashionable hairstyle held up with a black scrunchie. However, her makeup didn't seem quite right, as if she wasn't used to it or it didn't suit her. "Ha-ha." Sophia looked down at me and chuckled. She puffed up her cheeks, crossed her arms, and lifted the corners of her mouth. "Are you the one crawling around here, Alexander?" "Hey, Sophia. Long time no see. Are you seriously doing this as a job?" "The janitor? Ha-ha. Oh dear, have you fully embraced being a loser?" As Sophia said all this in one breath, I secretly thought to myself, same as ever. She didn't raise her voice, but her condescending attitude hadn't changed. No, it might have even powered up. "Alexander, you didn't pursue further studies even though there are jobs out there, even for high school graduates. Choosing to be a cleaner, isn't that too much to think about? You were my rival during middle school. That's enough." As Sophia continued to look down on me and spew sarcasm, Charlotte's voice sharply cut through. Charlotte's gaze was stern. Even as her husband, I felt a chill run through me at her expression. "What now, Charlotte? In front of a fledgling?" Sophia pulled out a document and showed it to us. It was Sophia's resume, with Sophia written in the name section. Seeing that we had recognized it, Charlotte quickly tore it down the middle. The sound of the paper tearing was followed by more tearing until it was shredded beyond repair. "What are you doing? Do you even realize whom you were talking to?" "Huh, the person cleaning over there. That's our president, Mr. Johnson." "President? Seriously? Coming here without even researching the president of the company you're applying to?" We don't need to interview someone like you. Please leave. Charlotte pointed sharply towards the exit, and inside, I thought, scary. While Sophia was busy studying at university, I had been working hard at the headquarters, learning the ropes from seniors and superiors. Through hard work and gradually improving performance, the president advised me that I was better suited to starting my own business rather than working under someone else. He was truly kind to me until the end, passing on books that inspired him during his own entrepreneurial journey, and even taking me to networking parties with other business owners, introducing me to many valuable contacts. With such support from those around me, Charlotte and I discussed it and decided to start our own company. I was actually aware that Sophia had applied to our company when her application came through. I wondered if it was some mistake, but enough time had passed since middle school, and Charlotte thought it was okay, so I let her application proceed to the interview stage. Charlotte was in charge of everything that followed. I trusted Charlotte's judgment and strictness in manners. She has a keen eye for people. That's why I'd entrusted her with the roles of my secretary and HR director. Our company, though small, has successfully attracted talented individuals and expanded its business. I believe this success is solely due to Charlotte's exceptional ability to evaluate people. As the HR director, Charlotte took action against Sophia. Even if you were a classmate of President Johnson, it doesn't matter. We don't hire people who lack the basic etiquette expected of a working professional. What do you mean? I graduated from a top university in active service. So what? Weren't you the one who always had it in for him during middle school? Always acting snide towards him. In the professional world, your academic background isn't as important as having common sense and basic decency. Sophia fell silent under Charlotte's relentless words. Essentially, Charlotte was saying Sophia lacked common sense. If you still want to join our company, carefully consider what I've said and start over from square one. That day, Sophia was sent home without even being allowed to interview. Later, I heard from a middle school friend about some rumors circulating in our hometown regarding this incident. Despite attending a prestigious school, Sophia wasn't as exceptional as she or others thought. She wasn't the top student, and she didn't get into top-tier universities. To make matters worse, her younger sister was highly talented and got into one of the nation's top universities straight out of high school. The difference between them had been evident since childhood, and Sophia was constantly compared to her sister by relatives and her parents. Why can't she be more like her sister? Really, who does she take after? It seems she was treated harshly by her own parents, likely feeling quite out of place at home. Desperate for the recognition, she neglected fashion and socializing with classmates, focusing solely on her studies. To her, someone like me, who often ranked first in our grade, was nothing but an obstacle. Understanding the background made her intense rivalry more comprehensible. Then, my friend started saying something strange. Weren't you the only one who paid attention to Sophia? Maybe she had a crush on you. What? She treated me like trash, you know. Like how kids are mean to those they actually like. That's what was suggested. But the only time I initiated contact with Sophia was when I commented on her grooming. Other than that, it was always Sophia who picked fights with me, and she seemed to have regarded me as an enemy ever since the grooming comment. If what my friend said was true, then Sophia might be even more awkward than I am. Perhaps she had her own way of reaching out, but at the time, I was not comfortable around Sophia and had no interest in romance, so I wouldn't have noticed anyway. Sophia's awkwardness hasn't changed, has it? But I did leave her many hints when I said, "Come back after you've thought it over." I didn't say, "Don't ever come back." She can figure it out if she thinks about it, right? Aha. If she was listening properly in that state, that is. Even though I heard about it from you, I didn't expect it to be that bad. She seemed like someone not used to dealing with people. Faced with Charlotte's sharp assessment, I could only offer a wry smile without a response. Sophia might have been harshly judged by her family, but she was undoubtedly intelligent, with her intellect and capabilities. I hope this experience frees her from her past constraints and helps her rediscover her true potential. Once she comes down, she'll notice the hints Charlotte gave her, and I hope she'll come back for another interview. I sincerely hope that everything moves in a positive direction.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.